Hi, I'm Olivia, a cheerful 10-year-old girl with pigtails and a gap in my smile. That was me, living what I thought was the perfect life. Our house always smelled like freshly baked cookies, and my parents, Thomas and Rebecca, seemed like they had everything under control. Olivia, honey, come help me set the table, Mom would call sweetly, like the apple pie cooling on the counter. Dad would come in, briefcase in hand, giving Mom a kiss on the cheek. How are my favorite girls? He'd ask, messing up my hair. But then things started to change. The sweet cookie smell was replaced by tension. I'd see Mom glaring at Dad while drinking her coffee, and Dad would sigh and go into his study. One night, I snuck downstairs after hearing them arguing. "You're never home, Thomas. Do you even care about this family anymore?" Mom yelled. "That's funny, coming from you, Rebecca. Maybe if you weren't so wrapped up in your own world." Dad shot back. I covered my ears, trying not to hear, but their fights got louder and harder to ignore. Then came the day everything fell apart. They sat me down on the couch, looking serious. "Sweetie, we need to talk," Mom began, her voice shaky. "Your mother and I have decided to get a divorce," Dad finished, not looking me in the eye. My world spun. "But, what about me?" I asked, my voice trembling. The silence was painful. They exchanged a look that made my stomach drop. "We think it's best if we find you a new home," Mom said, her words cutting like knives. "A new home? You mean you don't want me?" I couldn't believe it. "It's not that we don't want you," Dad tried to explain. "We just can't give you the stability you need right now." But I knew they were choosing themselves over me. In that moment, my heart broke into a million pieces. The next few weeks were a blur. Social workers, paperwork, packing my room. I clutched my stuffed bear, Mr. Snuggles, as I was led to a car that would take me to my first foster home. "You'll be okay, sweetie," the social worker said, patting my shoulder. But I wasn't okay. How could I be? My parents, the people who were supposed to love me the most, had decided I didn't matter. As the car drove away from the only home I'd ever known, I felt a hole open inside me, a void I didn't think could ever be filled. I stared out the window as my neighborhood disappeared, tears running down my face. I was alone now, truly alone, and I had no idea what the future held. I just knew things would never be the same again. The first few weeks in foster care felt like a nightmare. I kept hoping I'd wake up back in my old room, but every morning I realized it was real. The Johnsons, my foster family, were nice enough, but I couldn't shake the fear that they would get rid of me, just like my parents did. "Olivia, sweetie, breakfast is ready," Mrs. Johnson called one morning. I slowly walked downstairs, avoiding eye contact. "Thanks," I mumbled, picking at my pancakes. Mr. Johnson tried to be friendly. "So, Olivia, any plans for today?" he asked. I shrugged, not wanting to talk. Why get close to them when they'd probably send me away too? There were other foster kids in the house, but I kept my distance. Jake, a loud 12-year-old, tried to get me to play tag with him, but I stayed away. "Come on, new girl, are you scared or something?" Jake taunted, but I just glared at him and walked away. I didn't need friends. I didn't need anyone. Still, the Johnsons didn't give up on me. Day after day, they kept trying. Mrs. Johnson would leave little notes in my lunchbox, and Mr. Johnson offered to teach me how to ride a bike. Slowly, even though I didn't want to, I started to warm up to them. One night after dinner, they sat me down for a talk. "Olivia," Mrs. Johnson said softly, "we've been thinking, how would you feel about us adopting you?" I froze. Adopt me? Part of me wanted to jump with excitement, but another part of me was scared. Could I really trust them? You want to keep me?" I asked quietly. Mr. Johnson smiled and nodded. "We'd love for you to be a permanent part of our family." Tears suddenly flowed down my face, and I didn't even know if they were happy or sad tears. The Johnsons hugged me tightly, and for the first time in months, I felt safe. The adoption process began, and it was a roller coaster of emotions. Some days I was excited, thinking about decorating my new room, but other days, I was terrified. What if they changed their minds? What if they realized I wasn't worth it? I shared my worries with my social worker during one of her visits. She squeezed my hand and reassured me. "The Johnsons adore you, Olivia. They're not going anywhere." Just when I thought everything was finally getting better, my world turned upside down again. I was doing homework when the doorbell rang. Curious, I peeked around the corner, and my heart nearly stopped. There, standing at the door, were Thomas and Rebecca, my biological parents. "We've made a terrible mistake," my mother said, tears in her eyes. We want our daughter back. My father nodded, looking serious. We've worked through our problems. We can be a family again. I felt like I couldn't breathe. The Johnsons were shocked too, and I could see the fear in their eyes, the fear of losing me. My mind was spinning. Part of me, the little girl who still longed for her parents' love, wanted to run into their arms, but another part, the one that remembered the pain of being abandoned, wanted to slam the door shut in their faces. I stood there, frozen, as the adults argued. The Johnsons were firm about continuing the adoption, while my biological parents begged for another chance. "Olivia, sweetie," my mother called out when she saw me, "don't you want to come home?" Everyone turned to look at me. I felt torn in two, caught between the parents who had given me up and the ones who chose me. I was shaking as I realized that the decision was mine to make, and it wouldn't be easy. The courtroom felt huge and intimidating. I sat there, feeling small in my new dress as the grown-ups debated where I should live. The judge, looking serious, peered over his glasses and said, "We're here to determine what's best for Olivia." I watched as my biological parents, Thomas and Rebecca, acted like the perfect couple. They smiled and held hands. "We've worked through our problems," Thomas said. "We're ready to be a family again." But something didn't feel right. I noticed Rebecca glaring at Thomas when she thought no one was watching. Then, the truth came out. The Johnsons' lawyer started asking questions, and suddenly, everything spilled out. "Mr. Thomas, is it true you had an affair with your secretary?" the lawyer asked. Thomas turned pale. "That's not relevant," he muttered. "And Mrs. Rebecca, can you explain these receipts for alcohol and prescription pills?" Rebecca stammered, "That's private." My head was spinning. An affair? Drugs? Was this why they gave me up? But it got worse. The lawyer pulled out some papers. "Can you explain this email discussing using Olivia to access her trust fund?" I felt sick. They didn't want me back, because they loved me, they wanted money. Through all of this, the Johnsons sat quietly, holding my hand. They didn't shout or accuse anyone, they just supported me. When it was my turn to speak, I was shaking. "Olivia," the judge said gently, "who do you want to live with?" I looked at Thomas and Rebecca, the parents who had abandoned me and now wanted to use me. Then I looked at the Johnsons, who had welcomed me into their home and hearts. "I want to stay with the Johnsons," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "They're my real family now." Thomas jumped up, shouting, "You can't do this, she's our daughter." "Mr. Thomas, sit down," the judge warned. Rebecca tried another approach. "Sweetie, we're your real parents. We love you." But I had heard enough. Real parents don't abandon their kids. Real parents don't try to use them for money. "You're not my parents anymore," I said. The courtroom went silent. I saw the hurt in Thomas and Rebecca's eyes, but I couldn't bring myself to care. They had hurt me much worse. After what felt like forever, the judge finally made his decision. Custody is awarded to the Johnsons, and the adoption will proceed as planned. Relief washed over me. It was over. I was free. As we left the courtroom, Thomas tried one last time. "Olivia, please," he begged. I turned away. "Goodbye," I said, and I meant it. I was cutting them out of my life for good. The car ride home was quiet. Mrs. Johnson kept glancing at me in the rearview mirror. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" she asked. I thought about it for a moment. "No," I admitted, "but I think I will be." That night, in my room, my permanent room, I cried. I cried for the little girl who had been abandoned, for the family I had lost, and for all the pain I had gone through. But as I cried, I felt something else too, hope. I had a chance to heal, a chance for a new beginning. Mr. Johnson knocked softly on my door. "Olivia, we made hot chocolate. Want to watch a movie?" I wiped my eyes and smiled. "Yeah," I said, "I'd like that." As I joined them on the couch, snuggled between my new parents, I realized something. Family isn't about blood, it's about love, and I had finally found mine. Second story. 15 years later, a lot had changed. Here I am, Dr. Olivia Johnson, 25 years old, sitting in my own office. The walls are covered with children's drawings, little reminders of the lives I've touched. "Dr. Olivia, can we play with the sand tray today?" my young client, Mia, asks. I smile, remembering my own therapy sessions. "Of course, Mia, let's see what stories we can tell." As I watch Mia arrange the figurines, I think back to my own journey, the nightmare that haunted me for years, the trust issues I had to overcome, but with the Johnsons' love and a lot of therapy, I made it through. After the session, I head out for lunch. That's when I see him, Thomas, my biological father, sitting on a bench. He looks disheveled. "Olivia?" he calls out, his voice raspy. "Is that you?" I freeze, my heart pounding. He stands up, stumbling a little. "Please, I just want to talk, to apologize." I take a deep breath. "There's nothing to talk about, Thomas. I've changed," he pleads. "I've hit rock bottom. I understand now how wrong I was." For a moment, I feel a twinge of pity, but then I remember the pain, the betrayal. "I'm glad you've realized your mistakes," I say firmly, "but that doesn't change what happened. I've moved on with my life, and I suggest you do the same." I walk away, my hands shaking but my resolve strong. As I turn the corner, my phone buzzes with a news alert. Rebecca, my biological mother, had been arrested for fraud and drug possession. She was facing 5 to 10 years in prison. I sink onto a nearby bench, feeling overwhelmed. Part of me feels vindicated, but mostly I just feel sad, for the little girl who once thought they hung the moon. That evening, I come home to a surprise party. The Johnsons, now mom and dad, have gathered friends and family to celebrate the launch of my book. To Olivia, Dad says, raising his glass, "Who turned her pain into purpose?" I look around at the faces of my chosen family. There's Jake, my once annoying foster brother, now one of my biggest supporters. My best friend from college is here, as well as my mentor from grad school. "I wouldn't have made it this far without all of you," I say, my voice catching with emotion. Later, I find a quiet moment with Mom and Dad. "We're so proud of you, sweetheart," Mom says, hugging me tightly. "You've come such a long way," Dad adds, "and you're helping so many kids." I think about the book on the coffee table, Rising from the Ashes, a guide to healing from parental abandonment, my story out there for the world to see, but more than that, it's a beacon of hope for others. I just want other kids to know they're not alone. I tell them that their worth isn't determined by the people who let them down. As the party starts to wind down, I step outside onto the porch for some fresh air. I think about Thomas and Rebecca, and about the scared little girl I used to be, but I'm not that girl anymore. I'm strong, I'm loved, I'm whole. Just then, my phone pings with a message. It's from a reader of my book. "Your story gave me hope. Thank you for showing me there's life after abandonment." I smile, tears filling my eyes. This is why I do what I do, why I've turned my pain into purpose. As I look up at the stars, I make a silent promise to that little girl I once was, and to all the other children who feel lost and unwanted. You are worthy of love. You're not defined by those who left you. You can rise from the ashes, and I'll be here to help you every step of the way. With that thought, I rejoin my family, my real family, knowing that while I can't change my past, I can use it to create a better future for myself and others, and that's the best way to move forward. If you were in my shoes, would you have given Thomas a chance to explain himself when you saw him years later? Or do you think cutting ties completely was the right decision?